Hey guys, welcome to the Liberty Revolt. Today is just going to be me. Unfortunately, Dylan was at a company event for 1360 KHNC and is unable to make it tonight. So it is going to be I'm going to be doing a little bit of a Q&A with you guys. I'm interested to hear what kind of questions you guys have on any range of topics, be it politics, culture. You want to ask about some of the sports teams I've got up there. If you want to ask about some of the books that I've got on my bookshelf, doesn't matter to me. I just want to be here and engage more with you guys. So yeah, tonight I'm going to be joined with Eric. He's going to be on the show with me tonight. So yeah, let's get it rolling. Let me find everything I need in here. Oh geez, where's my videos, Eric? You guys have so much. Oh well, let's just do it. I'll just bring you on, bro. All right, well, I'm gonna learn this on my own. I'm used to having Bucky here with me, and like he's the one that runs the board, so I'm like trying to figure it out, and I have
Your
no
tech
idea what I'm
support is
doing.
not here today? Is that what
I
you're trying to
know
say?
my board mate. So KHNC tonight does this thing where on Friday nights they have little community events, and
Uh-huh.
tonight Jason, who I do the show with Wednesday mornings, uh, he showed them the lost history of the flat Earth, the first part.
All right.
He's a straight up conspiracy. I love my conversations with Jason. He is a straight up conspiracy theorist, and
I
I'm just
love a
like,
good conspiracy.
oh,
I
it's so
love a
much
good
fun.
one.
I'm like, I feel like worked out after having conversations with him, because
Oh,
like they some of these conspiracies, they have to dig so deep to get below the reality of the situation that they're asking questions you've never considered. For
the
instance,
the mental gymnastics is it's competitive. Simone
I
Biles level competitive.
how's it going, everyone? It's good to see you all here tonight. Yeah, no, it's pretty intense, but at the same time, I totally get it, because like at a point you've seen so many lies in the media, you've seen so many lies everywhere, that why should you accept anything at its face as truth? So it's like, you know what? I get it, but I'm still going to argue with you, because some of this stuff is like, you got to have a line here, man.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's gotten pretty dicey lately with all that kind of stuff. Like
No, but this is good old fashioned conspiracy theories, right? The Earth is flat, man. Like,
Well, the problem is right is like we're kind of like living in fruition times, like like I mean, like when Alex Jones has been right more than the FDA in the last, I don't know, couple of
it's
years.
getting
Like
terrifying.
we're getting into that space where I'm like, oh man, oh
But
no, really?
but like, it is a little bit terrifying that Alex Jones is like, I'm like, oh my gosh, when in 2014. So I remember driving from Monterey to Texas, and he had done his first podcast with Joe Rogan, and I was like,
Mm,
I've never actually listened to Alex Jones before, so I listened to him. And like, it was him and Eddie Bravo and Joe Rogan, and they
mhm.
got stoned, and they went over old fashioned conspiracy theories, and Alex Jones is sitting there talking about like chemtrails and stuff, and then he says this crazy one where he talks about how, yeah, there's this pedophile island out in the middle of the ocean that all the rich people and the celebrities go to. They call it the Lolita Express. And oh, don't ask me how I know this, but Bill Clinton's been on there like 24 times. And then they have this like Bohemian Grove. Oh crap! I shouldn't have said that out loud. They got all this other stuff, and
No,
I'm like, oh man, this stuff is crazy funny.
right.
And then
Oh,
Jeffrey Epstein, and I was like, oh my
oh
god,
man.
I'm scared. Go.
Who was it said something today, and I was like, this is why they disappeared Epstein. Was they? I know what it was. I don't know. This may not be
Oof.
appropriate for the platform. I don't know, but it was. There was a joke about a former president and a current president who
Yeah.
may have had a little bit of a love affair. I don't
Oh my, oh, yo,
know.
I wonder where that was going. But hey, look, we actually have a question.
We do. I think this
Please
is a great question.
explain the Convention of States. So, guys, the Constitution of the United States sets forth a couple mechanisms by which the Constitution can be amended. First and foremost, it's through a constitutional amendment voted on by the people, passed by Congress, right? They get a supermajority of your vote, of your support in a certain amount of states. Congress has a supermajority within it where they vote it through. That's stuff like your 19th Amendment, 20th Amendment, basically all amendments have happened that way. And that's your conventional means, right? Another way, the Constitution, it can be amended. They put forth a law, it gets rejected by the Supreme Court, and then Congress then votes by supermajority to make it an amendment to get around the Supreme Court, thereby amending the Constitution to include it. That's normally your second way. Now, the third way is a convention of the states. And this is to make sure states retain the ability to control the federal government. And what a convention of states is where your state delegations, I'm talking state congressmen, state senators, get together to vote on constitutional amendments. And if they have a supermajority, I think it's 65% or 70%.
So the number, so it's basically
three-quarters of states. It's three-quarters of states or X amount of people.
Yeah, it's like a class action lawsuit that requires a substantial portion, and essentially the way that I've understood it, and this may not be the best analogy, but I think it fits nonetheless. Is it's essentially like having the 60% required minimum vote in the Senate in order to pass a resolution, right? So, and this kind of goes back to some of the things that they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of the filibuster.
Google it really quick.
Yeah, so I believe it's 38 states have to come together, and that triggers a 34. Constitutional.
Wait,
is it 34?
Okay. Let me read it off. Okay, so when 2/3 of states' legislators apply for a constitutional convention, Congress must call a constitutional convention, wherein amendments that are proposed by this convention require 3/4 of states to ratify them. So the point of the convention of states is to make sure the power stays within the states. Sorry.
And it was 34. Was that the correct?
34 to get the application, get the 34. Convention started. So 34 of 50, and then 75% or 38 of 50 to pass it.
So there are a couple of instances in history where this has happened. But one of again, Kevin stated this unequivocally, and this is the absolute design of this mechanism is to ensure that the federal government never encroaches on states' rights. Because remember, we are not a democracy; we are a republic first, and we use democratic means to make decisions. But we are fundamentally a republic. I will give you that we have shifted very far from that, particularly in our current history. But a convention of states is essentially states coming together and saying, federal government, we no longer see the value in following what you are putting out, whether it's mandate, executive order, or even law. And essentially, I think that there's a couple of things that you can see happening right now in the country where there's pretty big movements. I think gun rights issues are a big one. On the other end, I think cannabis rights are a huge one that are absolutely being. And at some point, if they don't pass legislation, we may not have people out revolting and saying, but you may have 38 states come together and say, hey, look, we all have an interstate commerce. It doesn't make sense not to be able to do business with our neighbors. You've got to pass a law. And if the legislators refuse to do it, then they could at that point do I would call it a soft convention, and essentially propose forward a labor.
Congress must. So it is in the law that Congress must. So convention of states just helps. It's something the states can do to help retain their power when the federal government's doing too much. Where's Rousseau? So guys, tonight this is actually a Liberty Revolt special brought to you by myself as the lone member of the Liberty Revolt here, joined by Easy, Eric, motherfucking E over here.
Yep.
But
I'll say this to this, guys, is everybody, you guys should know we're snuggling up with Liberty Revolt. We like what they do. We like their message, and we like their content. And I know that, we've kind of, you guys have seen us post some stuff on our page with them. We're going to continue to do that. And I think it's, if you are a conservative person who's seeing the movement from individual freedoms to collective collective choice, I think you'll really enjoy some of the content that they're putting out.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of good previous videos that I know they have that you guys can go check out.
Yeah.
But you will be seeing us do a lot of content with Liberty Revolt. We'll be doing, I think we discussed, some merchandising stuff in the future. So be on the lookout. We're very excited to work with everybody. Me and Kevin are kind of just on tonight from a logistics standpoint. Everybody's got a little bit else going on, but we wanted to answer questions. This is what we love doing.
I wanted to do a show tonight, and I really want to just engage with you guys. I don't know you guys that well. I'm new to the game, so I wanted to, engage with the new audience, and just be able to talk with you guys about what's going on and stuff.
Absolutely.
So this next one from Sherry is, are you saying Biden can't enforce the vaccine mandate? Now, first, it's going to be unenforceable anyway. Like it's such a clusterfuck, like right off the bat. The fact that the president is trying to declare and dictate to private companies what they can and cannot do in regards to medical history. Like, first and foremost, I just want to point out Roe v. Wade specifically established that abortion is allowed by virtue of the government having no right to your medical history, having no right. Well, our right to privacy, goes beyond that. So to try to do something like this, you are dictating that the government must, because they're going to try to fine companies based on this. And the only way they can find out if an employee through OSHA is not vaccinated is by finding out their medical history, which is at some point these things got to conflate. But even beyond that, when the president puts out an executive order, when a law is established at any point, he is relying on, and Congress is relying on, your local police to pursue enforcement, to be the enforcer of any of it. So
I think they're relying on a few things here, Kevin. I think this is such a great question because are we saying they can't enforce a vaccine mandate? No. I mean, if they really want to, they have the military might to push, but that'll
just end the country entirely.
Exactly. And so the outlook that they're using right now is to push from the labor departments. That's like OSHA, and I'm sure there's a dozen other affiliated groups with the labor departments. And in essence, what they're asking them to do is make it a condition of employment. You either you got the jab, or you're going to be tested weekly in order to maintain some sort of visual on your medical status.
So the cost for that is either going to be from the company either has to pay for it, or they can push it off to the employee themselves.
Well, actually, I have a theory about this. So interestingly enough, one of the things that caught my attention is that there was seemingly an allowance on all of this, right? So I don't know if everybody can remember back specifically when Obamacare was brought in, and what they did, how they sold it to the American people as a cost effective choice of healthcare. And the way that they did that was by saying, well, we will not penalize you by making you go see a different doctor. We will, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the whole caveat on all of this was on the back end, which was if you don't get insurance, you're now a $1,200 a year liability to the government, right? So my theory on this, and they did similar kind of a workout, which was, I believe at the time the requirement was if your company had 50 or more employees, at that point you had to provide a compensatory package. Compensatory, thank you. Basically a health plan for them that fit within the metric of I think a $10,000 or less deductible.
Yeah, they had certain tiers. They had certain tiers that they was graded on, and they could choose which. Yeah, and it introduced a lot of bureaucracy into it too that made it wonderful as well. But I get where you're going though.
Yeah. So my theory is that rather than forcing people to be mandated to go out and have the jab, at some point this may turn into a tax penalty, and I can't think of an easier way for them to try and
in order for them to levy the penalty at any point, it requires the government knowing your medical history, which
So
is
yeah, so that's such a huge point. Okay, so the HIPAA laws are they are robust. They have been proven time and time again to be an incredible protection to doctors, to patients, and to a lot of people dealing with significantly hard issues. One of the tremendous concerns that has come out of this for all of me is, look, every decision that I make with a doctor is done in discussion about the health and well-being of my life, the people in my life. And they have taken a straight hammer to the person who knows you best and ultimately has the most influence and power over how you look at, view, and ultimately probably behave in your life. It is medical tyranny is
terrible.
A shortcut.
Yeah, and it's like it's getting insane because it's like there's so many decent comparisons between the abortion debate and the vaccine debate. My body, my choice. Government not being allowed to have access to your privacy. Well, bye, Eric. It was fun while you were here. But yeah, so there's so many contradictory ideas here that it makes it, to me, it's very confusing how few people, especially the pro-abortion side, are so willingly ignoring the fallacies in their arguments when presented with it by the conservatives or the people who don't want to take the vaccine. So I think that let's get to this next one right here until Eric gets. Oh, there's Eric. He's back. Yay. There you are, bud.
I hit the back button. I was like,
but yeah, so I was just going to get to this next question as to move on. Tracy asked, why did the age of vaccine for children change from 16 to 12? I'm just going to say right now, power. It's all about power. This whole thing has devolved into power. And to get back to the earlier question about the vaccine mandate as well, all of this, if you want to fight it, the way to do it is really stand by your principles. Now, a lot of you are living paycheck to paycheck. You probably don't have, not a lot of you, but some of you probably are living paycheck to paycheck. And you can't really afford to sacrifice your job to fight the mandate. But at this point, there are companies that are willing to stand up and fight against this stuff. Like you need to be outspoken about it. We have lost the privilege of being able to be ignorant of politics. It is permeating too much of our lives now.
Yeah, I was going to say that, for a long time, we have counted on the silent majority to stand up.
Well, time to stop being silent.
And that's exactly the point, right? Is I think people are asking, what is the next step? How do we combat this? Well, the very first thing we do is we say it is okay to have first. You don't have to feel guilty for having an opinion that differs from the narrative of big tech and big media. It's not a sin. And I think a lot of people get caught in the trap of, I'm on my phone all day. I see that people are cognitively kind of dissonant to the world they live in. It's okay to disagree. We still have that right in our country. Now, they may try to take it from us, but until they say you can't dissent and it's going to take your life, we still have that right. And I'll push further into that and say, I am a compliance guy. Like when I talk about law enforcement and incidents that happen there, I'm all about complying for the moment. But there's a caveat to that, which is you go to court if you've been treated unfairly, right? And we're at a point where there's kind of some strange things happening right now that I can see that seem to be centering themselves into an area that's going to require us to use not unconventional means, just means that I don't think we've used in a long time, particularly on the conservative side, which is, know your rights, go out and protest. If you want to organize in your city and you want to go out and you want to make your voice heard, that's okay. Like that's an important part of your civic duty. And you don't need to feel shame about that. Now, people will probably try to do that, but I think it is time for people. And I think we've seen this to some degree with particularly parents at school board meetings and stuff like that. But we can show up at council meetings, city council meetings. We can show up at, we can show up at county board meetings. We can show
seriously.
up. So a lot of this hinges, in my opinion, on how loud do we get with our local representatives.
That's the thing. So like, I just want to reiterate it. Every chance I get, I'm going to reiterate it. Go see your local party. If you're a libertarian like myself, go see your local Republican Party or your Libertarian Party. Chances are, if you know your community, it's not as polarized. A Republican at your town level is a lot closer to you than you think. Work to fight against the Democrats at the local level. They're absolutely destroying a lot of these cities. But even if you have a strong Libertarian Party, do what you can at the local level. Care about your city. Care about the politics of your county. If that's all you have to care about those things, because that's the government that is the most impactful on your life. COVID taught us one thing above all. It's that if your local police do not support the mandate, it doesn't exist. And that goes for all things.
So I was just gonna, No, if you would. So Tracy and Casey are having an interesting discussion here in the comments, and I'd love to interject a little bit here, which is,
let's see.
It looks like Tracy is asking, why did the EUA get extended to 12-year-olds? It looks like what Casey was trying to articulate is, so the FDA has approved it for all people 16 and above. If I'm not mistaken, is that correct? It's either 16 or 18 or above.
WHO has it, but I think the FDA has.
Yeah, so that is an FDA approval. The emergency use authorization extends to kids 12 years and older, and that really has been something that has been implemented more on a state-by-state basis.
It comes down to, this has become so politicized that all that matters is politics. All that matters at politics is this point. We have studies coming out of the University of Tel Aviv and everything showing that natural immunity is just as effective and should be treated as just as effective as the other things at this point.
So Kevin, can I explain that a little bit? I actually had a really great discussion with my primary care provider about this specific thing the other day. Okay,
I do know it also. I do want to say also, I understand that they do say both of them together also it helps, but at the same time, natural immunity is good enough.
Yeah, again, so I'll speak on the difference between natural immunity and the vaccines that we have now and how they provide. So the current set of mRNA vaccines that we have available, what they do is they're very effective in actually treating a person from getting a specific type of spike protein virus. Now, these are like what I mean by that is, when you look at a viral structure, it's a circle, and there are different, like, they look like spores, but they call them spikes, right? Mm-hmm. The number of spikes means it's this chemical or this structure. The protein that is present in that spike indicates to some degree what virus it is, and so that's kind of how they come up with an understanding. These vaccines, what they do is they target the spike protein. So it helps your body identify the spike protein. Now, that's good, and that doesn't mean that they're ineffective, but what it does mean is that it's not giving you immunity against the viral structure, right? It's giving you only exactly. It's only giving you immunity to the spike protein genetic code, essentially, that it recognizes when it enters your system. That doesn't mean that there aren't some crossovers and that kind of thing. But the way my doctor explained it to me is that through natural immunity, you're getting what the medical community calls T-cell immunity. Okay, and that is essentially it recognizes. It recognizes the structure of the virus rather than the protein attached to it. And so in essence, that in itself should give people. In a scientific way, the way it's explained is that should give more robust and diverse inoculation against potential variants. Now, you may still get sick, you may still have issues, but the chances that you're going to suffer because of it there isn't really any great evidence to say that natural immunity isn't better, and there is a lot of evidence that suggests
what it comes down to, in my opinion, is just that, hey, look, it's so clearly power, because what it should be is, hey, either if you are vulnerable and your body will be in danger if you do get the vaccine. If you are not in a danger group, either one works. It doesn't matter which. Yeah. That would be the logical take. That, to me, is why it's so undeniable its power, because the only reason it wouldn't be that they'd be forcing this on everybody, even those who don't need it, according to the WHO. The only reason that would be happening is because they're like, okay, pharmaceutical companies, by the way. So the other thing, the horse paste thing that people talk about, they like to mention the company that owns it said, hey, don't take this, right? Do you want to know something about that company that owns it?
I do.
So they got approved to produce a vaccine. How much would it cost to produce a treatment that would prevent needing the vaccine? Oh, it would cost $1 a dose, if not less.
So I think
it's almost like they're motivated. They're motivated as well by profit.
You don't have to look very far back in history to remember a company that intentionally was enslaving its populace of users. Oxycodone almost it's ruined a lot of this country. And now you see that their manufacturer is going through a humongous lawsuit. It's going to pay a huge amount of money, but it will never equate to the amount of lives lost, nor will it equate to the amount of people who never change the lifestyle. So one of the things I'm not necessarily in the camp of this is all for profit. I'm more in the camp of, like, I don't think anybody knows who's calling the shots. And so if somebody can profit off of it in the meantime, they're probably going to.
So this is what I mean by that, just to clarify. I'm not saying it's some like nefarious grand scheme. I'm saying it's like, people in power in the government are like, dude, they just keep going with it. Like, dude, just mandate the vaccine. Mandate the vaccine. Like, just mandate the vaccine. We'll help these guys out while we're doing it. Just mandate it. They're not going to say no.
Well, and I'll take this. We kind of started this way, and I'll kind of wrap on the vaccine a little bit this way, which is so again they're using, to this point, government positions will be required. Well, what is the postal office a federal entity?
Oh,
because they got exempted today.
They're also struggling for work. It's almost like they're like, we can't hit the federal organizations that need us.
Right. And so to this point is these are being pushed through a federal, it's like a loophole, essentially. This is what you see when you have oligarchies. Okay. Yeah. This is essentially like large companies saying, okay, we'll do that favor for you if you do this favor.
Exactly. It's like a giant web it's just like a giant incestuous power web up at the top. And it's like, but I want to do, so first and foremost, because I do want to move on from the COVID topic. If you guys have questions for topics that aren't COVID related, please send them my way. I don't care what the topic is, just send it my way. I do want to answer this last one though from Brent. Biden said all government positions will be required. Yes, he is actually allowed to mandate it for the federal government, as he has every right to, as any employer has the right to do. They can mandate it or not. The government just doesn't get to tell individual employers what they're allowed to do. He can tell the federal government, hey, you guys got to take it, right? Because he's the executive of it. So that's a different than telling private companies, hey, all of you also have to mandate this for your people. Casey did say that these don't violate HIPAA. Casey, what I'm getting at with it on the HIPAA side of things is that in order for the government to verify for purpose of fining, granted, they're going to have to do that at some point. If you're going to fine someone for this, they're going to take you to court. The judge is going to want to see proof. In order to provide proof, it would require the government having to know your medical history. In order to enforce the fine and be able to provide evidence for the fine, they have to know what your medical history is, which is why Roe v. Wade was passed, because people were like, it should be murder. But they were like, no, the government doesn't have a right to know about it. They don't have a right to your medical history. If they don't have it in terms of murder, they don't have it in terms of vaccines either. So I
think Monica's got a great question to transition off the topic into something else here. I don't know if you can see it. I'll just read it. So she's asking, did the Biden administration really propose requiring financial institutions to report on the IRS all deposits and withdrawals of all businesses and personal accounts with a balance of more than $800? I've done a little bit of research into this. I don't think there's any way that this is actually going to get enacted. I believe they're actually shooting at $600 being the target. That was the last thing I had read,
but I hadn't heard much about it either.
The issue with this, guys, is it could be completely malign, and the reason it could be is I think if anybody who filed their own taxes this last year, the very first question you were asked was specifically about cryptocurrencies. Okay.
Yep.
It is my belief that the federal government is trying to get a handle on how to appropriately tax, verify, and track cryptocurrencies. And so one of the things that you will see is that $600, although it doesn't sound like necessarily a ton of money, for the average household right now in America, that's about what's in their savings account. Okay. And so I think what some of this is leading to is part of it is the SEC is saying we need to be able to not allow people to essentially have untraceable money. And so they want a hand in it. This is my opinion. But secondary to that, I think what they're really fishing for is down the line whether or not we may move from a fiat currency to a crypto-based currency. And I think that that's a possibility.
Yeah, no. And so they are trying to get ahead of this. I was having a discussion with someone else about it. The crypto presents a huge problem to the government because of its untraceable nature, right? Jason from the radio station, they sell gold there, and he's, all about gold. The thing is that you only have as much gold you only have that gold until the government comes and takes it, right? So the amount of money you can keep on a 256 or an 8 gigabyte flash drive in the form of cryptocurrency is equal to basically the wealth of the world, because it's, small codes. This is just insane overreach. I was reading up a little bit about it, and I'm going to read more on it so I can comment further on it, because I just don't know. So I'm going to get more information on that and talk about it at a later point. Who asked that question? Monica, ask me that question again sometime next week, and I'll actually get back to you with a better answer. But it sounds like it's an egregious invasion of privacy. I was just reading through. All of us would have, if we have more than $600 in our personal accounts, we have to report it. So they just want everybody's information. So any news on Gizlane Maxwell? Last I heard, she had agreed to cooperate. She's basically in super protective custody at this point. She's definitely trying to negotiate to get off with her crimes, but unless there's some big fucking name she's about to reveal. Prince Andrew just got indicted on sexual assault charges today, so in the UK. So this is definitely a story that needs to be followed. Don't ever let anyone forget Jeffrey Epstein, okay? Like, that was so obvious that people were joking before when he went to jail. Everyone said this was going to happen, and it happened because it's
man, this one has, in the last week, this has resurfaced for me a couple of times, just kind of through that joke I said earlier. But all joking aside, guys, we should be really terrified that, like, again, there's still information. Yeah, there's still information coming about where Epstein got his starts. There are some clear ties to some intelligence groups, and we need to understand how somebody and realize that story has now changed, right? So those two guards that apparently weren't, that for some reason missed it, weren't there. The camera wasn't on. Like, all of these things are now confirmed. They're true. In fact, one of those officers has retracted his statement and made a new statement.
It's like it's a movie, man. Like,
and the media has moved on so quickly from the issue, and
it's because
there's party issues to talk about that. But I do want to point out, like, that's a pretty odd proposition that we can just have somebody off in prison and then nobody has to answer the question of how.
Yeah. So can we talk about the border? So I am just going to be honest. I have been very loosely following the border lately. I do know a little bit about what's going on the border, Brent. So I understand that our border is completely inundated. They have had to open up multiple of the child holding facilities. The child concentration camps, right? That Trump actually worked to close down. Well, Biden's been reopening them, and of course AOC is not crying on the fence right now. So I do know that the border is getting hit. I can say this out loud because even if YouTube fact checks me, it's not going anywhere. They are prescribing ivermectin to people coming across the border to fight off parasites. The CDC is currently recommending that they give ivermectin to refugees coming in from Afghanistan and coming across the border. Speaking of which, I have not done any research into where the Afghan refugees have gone. So that is another thing I need to check into this week, figure out what's going on with that refugee crisis. So the border is getting pretty hot, man. It's getting pretty testy down there.
Just on the border, guys, so some of the things that have happened recently. So the Supreme Court did uphold the Remain in Mexico policy.
Thing that has done a little bit to alleviate some of the problems.
Yep, and so that has helped. That being said, there is an emboldened cartel movement right now that is seemingly being unspoken of, and it's
ripping apart. I know TJ and Juarez have been getting absolutely obliterated lately.
So, for all of those on Liberty Revolt, I just moved out of Southern California, right? So I've relocated myself as a refugee of California to Utah.
Take my dad with you, man.
Right. I will tell you that, a lot of these stories didn't necessarily make the media, but, it's really sad when you hear of a Suburban packed with 30 people laying on top of each other, getting smashed by a semi. These are real stories. These are not just, sob stories and in order to make you feel bad. But, the cartels are absolutely extorting the border right now for what they can. The Remain in Mexico policy has helped, but there seemingly is a lack of resources being allocated to enforce it.
Speaking of Mexico, this just blows my mind about the ignorance of the people on the left. Abortion. You saw that the Supreme Court in Mexico recently overturned because in Mexico, they actually punish mothers for getting abortions. I'm pretty sure Texas's law doesn't punish mothers. There's nowhere in America that punishes mother. English common law hasn't punished a mother for an abortion since the 1500s. So Mexico did, though. And now they stopped doing that. And people are talking about how Mexico is being more modern than Texas. I'm like, Mexico is literally run by drug cartels, actually run by drug cartels. Hundreds of politicians have been killed over the last decade for standing against the cartels. The police stands with the cartels. There's a great movie that is obviously a little bit Hollywoodized, but does actually do a pretty good job of portraying just how disgustingly big the cartels are in Mexico. It's called Sicario, starring James Brolin and oh my god, I'm forgetting his name. Oh my gosh,
Benito Banderas.
I'm forgetting. Someone in the comments is gonna get it, and it's gonna piss me off.
What is it? It's
Benicio del Toro. Benicio del Toro. Okay,
Benicio del Toro. That's what it is.
There we go. Sicario is a great movie. And there's a point where the main character goes with one of her buddies up to a roof that's overlooking Juarez, and he goes, "You want to see some fireworks?" And they're standing on this roof overlooking Ciudad Juarez, and it's just gunshot. All you hear is just gunshots, and you see stuff in the distance, and that's real shit. This is what I tell people on the left to do: read news about countries that aren't your own. The reason why I know so much is when I was learning Arabic, we watched Arabic news every single day, and BBC Arabi and Euronews Arabi, they cover everything everywhere, and there's a lot of shit going on in the world. And
you know what? Sharon mentioned this. I'll shamelessly plug. Oscar El Blue on Facebook does have a pretty good pulse on the border. He covers it consistently. I think we've had him as a guest in the past. I would not hesitate to peek over there if you really have some interesting questions about the border. He may have some up-to-date stuff that we're not following right this second.
Yeah, I love speaking about the Mexico situation because that's a country because if we're going to talk about the border, as I want to give you guys an introduction to some libertarian ideas on this. So a lot of libertarians, you're talking about dumbass libertarians, right? The cringy kind. They'll argue for days, we need to have open borders. if you talk to people that are libertarian like myself in the Mises Caucus, our response is you lost the right to open borders when you started offering social welfare programs and not denying them to immigrants. As soon as you extend your social welfare programs to immigrants, you and it's more, trust me, if you're competing for, if you're opening up your social welfare programs to immigrants down in Central America, do not think that your country immediately becomes the target destination for any and all of them immediately with open borders, because not in their countries are they going to get socialized healthcare, socialized medicine, all this other stuff. They're going to have police forces. So it's like you lose the right to an open border once you introduce social welfare programs. Now, do you want to introduce, let's open borders and all across North America, get rid of all the social welfare programs and actually have competition between countries for labor. Oh, you're not going to do that? You're not going to agree to that? Okay, borders got to be closed. You got to have control flow, because unless you're going to start denying immigrants social benefits, you cannot have open borders. You just cannot. You will never be able to, because you're not companies aren't competing with other companies at that point. A company in Mexico is not just competing with a company in America. A company in Mexico is now competing with not just a company in America, but the American education system, the American medical system, and whatever else you get benefits from.
I think it's really interesting. So, I have, I don't have a ton of world travel experience, but I've been to Mexico a bunch of times. And then I did have an opportunity to go down and work in El Salvador for about a month. Okay.
Yeah.
And there were two very striking things that were inexplicably wrong to me. Okay. One was that the country is just flat out. There is no entity that is not corrupt. I think right now that their current president is a pretty young guy. He's come in with some energy and said we're not going to necessarily do the way we've been doing in the past, and I think that's great. But
he had to be very complicit, or they would have just killed him, like straight up.
Correct. Well, and I want to give people some point of view on it. Mexico is the entry point, but most of the people are not coming from Mexico.
Yeah,
a majority
Honduras,
of them,
Costa Rica,
Honduras, El Salvador, Costa Rica.
It is
all of those
there.
the southernmost central countries.
The cartel. It's weird. The cartel's pipeline is just crumbling. It's a string of crumbling countries.
One of the things that people don't realize is that clearly Colombia has its history with us in the drug trade and with CIA, all sorts of stuff. But those corridors in the middle used to be points of interest and still are for major networking from these cartels. And so I think that people have this notion that the cartels are bringing Mexicans through the border at a very high rate. They're not. They're going down to the places where they traffic drugs through, and they're saying, let's take the people, because if we can bring people and the narcotics, then it's cheaper for them to do it this way. It's distraction money. It's like paying off an authority at the Tijuana border to look the other way. Yep. They do this stuff all the time. So I just wanted to kind of give some perspective about that, because I think a lot of people really do think it's Mexico that is the problem. Mexico is just simply
that's why I say the cartels, because the cartels aren't just Mexico. You have cartels throughout all of Central America, like the Sinaloas and all of the Mexican cartels have gotten massive over the last. They've actually taken most of the control.
In El Salvador, the cartels are as powerful as the government, and what I mean by that is there's the MS-13 gang, there's the M-18 gang, and then there is the centralized government. When I was down there, this was probably, it had to be like 2015, 2016. One of the things that was going on at that period of time was that the cartels had come to the government and said, we will stop essentially having war with ourselves if you guys will, basically stop causing trouble for us, right? So they basically called a truce. Well, the government reneged on the agreement, and were the aggressors, and they responded in kind, and it turned into a full scale.
I've heard it's gotten I heard it's gotten absolutely horrible in El Salvador lately.
It's very sad, but I just want to give that perspective, because I think when people think about it, it's always Mexico, but every country is using Mexico as an entry point at this particular time.
Yeah. So, the reason why they want open borders now is so that they can import votes. There's actual economic reasoning behind open borders that, if you've done right, makes sense. Again, that requires basically the unicorn of all actions, which is the government doing things right. That'll never happen. It's always done wrong, always leads to problems. So at the end of the day, they are, at this point, one of the reasons they love the open borders idea or what have you is because they know a lot of people will vote based on who gave them citizenship rather than what their beliefs are, at least to start. They want to bribe the vote. Let's see, is there, what other ones are there? Why the U.S. is the least strict of any. It's because this is what America is. This is
rant on this one for a minute.
This is what America is founded upon. America is founded upon immigration. America is not a people. There is no race of people that is America. America is a series of cultures and values and traditions that have come together and built foundations that are similar to each other, that we can create this beautiful country that has become lost, but it's there. So the reason why we're so accepting is because we want the world, as Lady Liberty says, give me your sick, give me your poor, and we will make something out of them, because we're America. We are the land of opportunity. My grandparents came to this country, at least my grandpas, both of them came to this country between 1900 and 1925. These men, their family came over from Sicily with nothing. For those of you that are unaware, Sicilians were considered brown until they broke into the middle class, and then now Italians are for some reason white. But Sicilians
Can I pontificate on something here? So one of the things that I think America is a pro-immigration country. We take in more people than any other country, and I'd have to fact check this, but the last time I thought I had read something about this, it was more than all countries in the entire world combined. Okay,
almost
per capita. The reason I say and preface that is because Kevin was talking about his parents and family's immigration journey, or excuse me, his grandparents' immigration journey in this country. We all share I think most of us at this point can share some sort of kind of immigration story. When my forefathers came here, they came here on the hope and the promise that if they tried real hard, they might make it.
Yes.
And I think what Kevin's point is in articulating it a little bit different is people are not coming here because they think they can be wildly successful if they just freaking work hard. They're coming over here because we're saying to them, if you come, well, then there's nothing we can do but give you more. So the idea of give me your meek, give me your sick, give me your poor used to mean give me the people who are going to go to every length possible to succeed.
Exactly.
And now we're asking for the opposite of that. We're asking, give me your poor, give me your sick, but the one word that's missing, give me your lazy also, right?
Yeah, no,
I'm not saying immigrants are lazy, so don't take what I have to say wrong, but I am saying that the incentive is not the idea of the American dream anymore. It is the social welfare.
Let me finish, let me say. So I think that it's the give me the lazy. That's coming from us. That's coming from the American side of things. The reason why I know that America's doing a good job of still being a land of opportunities, because whenever I meet someone that's from another country, whenever I meet an immigrant, I take the time to ask them how, where are you from? What was it like there? What caused you to, what brought you to America? Every time I get in an Uber or in a Lyft, I'll be standing on campus and we'll have people come up and talk to us about it and stuff like that. And it's like, you learn, people think that the only way you can learn is, is by performing actions and stuff, but you learn a lot. You learn a lot just by listening to people. You either need to go to the here's my take on it. If I'm not going to go to the countries, if I'm not going to travel the world, I'm going to listen to the stories coming from the people that are coming from there. If every Venezuelan I've ever met from Venezuela tells me how horrible it is to be there, I'm going to believe them. If every Cuban tells me how horrible Cuban it was, I'm going to believe them. If every North Korean tells me how horrible North Korea was, I'm going to believe them. Because we as a people need to get better at listening. All anybody cares about is, like me right now, all I care about is talking. All I care about is getting my voice out there. We need to listen more. Where'd you go? You're silent there, bud. Can't hear you.
I think for the last couple of generations, something magnificent and also potentially dangerous has happened in this world.
Yeah.
We have found ourselves with extra time, extra means, and an automated world that makes living not a challenge. Like, that when you're going to go to bed at night, the likelihood of you waking up is almost ensured, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say bad things don't happen, but the point is that 100 years ago, okay, you stubbed your toe hard enough and it got a little infected, lights out, right? Like, we have to understand that it's only been a few generations that have lived in a world of such convenience, and we're taking it for granted at this point.
That's the problem.
And that is 100% is the problem.
I want to talk, because like our country, the problem is if you talk to people on the left, they think they have compassion and empathy. And the problem is with compassion is feeling bad for another person's pain. If you're compassionate, you feel bad when they feel bad. What's the word for feeling good about someone else feeling good? Why don't we know that word? It's compersion, by the way, and it's very rarely ever used. It is a very hard word to find. The idea that we would be happy for other people's success has seemed to been lost, and you see it on the left. All of their positions are jealousy and want and greed. They demonstrate all the deadly sins, the 7 deadly sins. It's on full display. They project upon us. They project their complaints. If you actually listen to what people are saying, they are telling you about themselves. They hate capitalism because of what capitalism has done to them. So they think you also subscribe to it. They hate capitalism because it's materialist and all this other stuff, because that's what it's done to them. They think you're a racist and all this other stuff because, they've had to acknowledge their own internalized feelings that are based around bad things. There's always some level of projection. Just listen to what they are saying and you will know where the problem is. And so we don't take the time to listen, and they don't feel good. They don't see something like Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos as a sign of something good, as a sign of what they did. What Jeff Bezos provided was worth hundreds of billions of dollars of convenience. Elon Musk is providing hundreds of billions of dollars of technology to help potentially save mankind in the future or take giant leaps forward. They're providing great services. And so it's what our society has lost, especially if you see what's going out of the university system. There's a lot of people that just they have fallen victim to, truthfully, what is the worst part about capitalism, which is the drive to make everything materialist. It's something that I struggled with for a long time, and it's why I try so hard in my own personal life to find joy out of stuff that isn't wanting and going and buying. It's experiences and stuff. But we've lost that as a people, as a community, and it's really bad, because all it does is just fuel hate and anger. When the only people you can have compassion for are people you see as beneath you, then there's a major problem there. You're muted, bud. Again.
I get it. I figured out the buttons. No, I think the level of of compassion. I think somebody in the comments is kind of using these terms: empathy, compassion. We are fighting an uphill battle right now. So having feelings about stuff doesn't necessarily fit the timeline with which we have to work with. But it is important to, and at least in my opinion, is these aren't discussions that are really lopsided on one side of the table, or like this. Yeah. Me and Kevin are having a very this is a middle of the road every night at the dinner table kind of conversation. And what we're talking about is the real world ramifications of some of these things. I don't have a problem with immigration. I don't have a problem with people making personal medical decisions. What we're talking about is if we're going to do these things, we had better make sure that we're preserving our lifestyle and way of life.
There is value to our cultures. There is value to our traditions.
I am absolutely okay with people coming in and putting their stamp on our society and integrating their culture with ours. Yeah. And we are a melting pot. But to say that America has no culture is an ignorant statement.
Exactly.
To pretend like everybody who comes here needs to stay within their cultural bound. Like some of these things that are happening are I'll use the segregation route here, right? Which is we've gone from let's see no color to I don't want to have meetings with people that don't look like me in I don't know 4 years. So I only say that as a like nobody who's doing these things is taking one moment to put empathy or compassion to what they're doing. They're strictly working off of there's a paycheck at the end of this
task. They're not applying logic.
That's right. And
they don't logically address the problem they so passionately feel compassionate about.
Right. And so like I said, there is absolutely a place for feelings. I think what we've done, though, is one side of the argument has gone off the deep end into feelings and has left logic at the door. And on our side, sometimes we lock down feelings because they just aren't convenient for logic that needs to be worked out. Now,
I agree with that.
I find myself on on one side of these things pretty often, but it's okay to acknowledge that people do look at them differently. And I think from a libertarian standpoint, particularly, it's important to acknowledge that, like, when we're talking about individual freedoms and rights, from a libertarian standpoint, we absolutely want immigration. It's a huge bolster to the economy.
I want all the smartest and hardest working people from around the world to say, yep, I want to work in America. Okay, please come in. Please come in. Give us the best, hardest, smartest workers on planet Earth. Don't care about your race, your gender. I don't care any of that. Just make our country better. Like that's all.
Cheryl, that's an interesting question. Can we? So
let's answer. Let's talk about these two.
Yeah, this is such an interesting question to me.
So let me. I really, because I actually have a very strong opinion on this. So
go.
So the Constitution was built on Christian values. It was built on individual value, Christian values, in that Christianity was the first religion to really bring individual rights to the consciousness, if you will. It was Christianity that really hammered in that the individual is in fact the most important part of life, and it is your responsibility as an individual to be the best you can possibly be for your community and stuff like that. And we have individual rights that are important and God-given that no government has a right to take from us, right? Rights that are bestowed by our Creator, whatever you have it. Now, when it comes to Islam, if you are unaware, Sharia is actually just the word for law in Arabic. Mm-hmm. So Sharia law is like saying like
double redundancy.
But
the law.
Sharia, according to Islam, Sharia only applies to Muslims. Sharia would, if instituted in America, would only be displayed by the Muslim community. And in case you don't know, pretty much every Muslim you're ever going to meet is a fine, outstanding human being. I have spent a lot of time with a lot of Muslim people. Every teacher I had except one, when I was at DLI, was Muslim. I've worked with plenty during my time in the military. Like,
Kevin, do you speak fluent Arabic, or just enough to poke around?
When I take the time to warm up, I am very rusty right now. I would not be able to speak it as well as I can. I can listen to it and I can read it pretty well still.
And you learned that while you were serving, correct?
Yeah, that was actually my job. I was an Arabic translator when I was in the military. So, and there are obviously like there are problems within Islam itself that the Islamic community has to deal with, and just like there are problems within the Christian community. The reality is that you know the problem that you're going to see is in a lot of places, like if you look at what's happened over in Sweden and stuff, because there was not the impetus put on, okay, this is our culture, right? You're allowed to
Right.
maintain some of your Sharia standards, but they're not allowed to conflict with what Sweden is.
Thank
And
you for bringing that. That's such an important point. Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
So that's what it all has to come down to, right? Your Christian belief you cannot start conflicting with what the American culture is, and it should be the case that your Christianity doesn't conflict, because there's nothing being taught in Christianity that would conflict. Now, what's in the Quran is there's room for debate there, but for the most part, when you just as most Christians today, most Muslims today living in the West are not Wahhabists, they are not Salafists, they are not a part. So it's like,
and I want to challenge this if I can. I want to challenge this concept. I do believe, yeah, we are a country built on Judeo-Christian values. But the second part of the statement of it's hard to live in America if you're living Sharia law. I guess my perspective on that is I think what you're and I could be wrong. Please type in the comments. I'd love to hear from you on this. Which is, it sounds like to me is that it's not culturally popular.
You're not and by that, Katie.
Yeah, that definitely can be a challenge. I definitely understand that. But I would say to you, which is that the foundation of the country, right? And this is, again, this goes back to those Judeo-Christian values that really were part of the Enlightenment. That's how far back all of this stuff goes, right? Which is where we became aware as individuals that our impact is as individuals within society was much greater than as a collective society trying to narrow down to the individual level. And so when you're looking at Muslims in our country, I think what you can see is that there's definitely a few places where there is a heavy population of Islamic individuals.
Look at Dearborn.
Yeah, Michigan, Minnesota, and to some extent, like the local policies are
reflective of it. And you know what? In my anarchist society, I would say that's fine as long as it's voluntary.
Yeah,
and as long as it's only applicable to them.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I think to give that a comparison, it's also if you're a strict Catholic
or a Jew,
it's
Jew.
very hard. Yeah, then you could
Jewish
also make the same kind of claim to it's hard to live in America where we have abortion and so I just want to encourage people. Look, your faith is your faith. It's important. I'm not going to knock it. I have some personal concerns with the direction. I think that ultimately, if you're a strict adherer to the Islamic faith, some of the I don't think they're written literally, but some people, particularly these kind of extremist groups.
But those are Wahhabists and stuff.
And that's what they are. They are extremist groups. And to Kevin's earlier point, 95% of people that you're going to run into that either practice this religion or have it integrated into their life in some way, shape, or form, they are great people. They are top-notch individuals. They're oftentimes very educated. I don't have anything bad to say about the individual. I don't necessarily agree with the end goal, but
there is something to be said for. The thing is that when you just say, hey, because there was a plan in America, like it kind of crumbled in the 1900s, but they did make a legitimate attempt to try to spread populations out, immigrant populations out. What they found is it's much easier for immigrants to come in and survive when they're surrounded by other immigrants, but that does make it very difficult to make sure they're getting the cultural values you want, like the free speech. Because here's the thing: when I say the values, I'm talking free speech, right to bear arms, all the constitutional kind of stuff. Because free speech is only codified really in America. They say it is in Australia, but again, they took the guns and then said it's dependent on what we say now that we have the guns. So. Yeah, I want to just say, KD, that was in no way were you demeaning anyone. That was a really good question.
No,
That's a
absolutely not.
really, really important topic to discuss. But it goes with all immigrants, right? When it's the questions come in when you have massive amounts of immigration from specific, like from singular areas coming in all at once. If you do not do the job of trying to disperse it and make sure that they have enough fellow immigrants around to be able to survive, but you're not just creating a small microcosm of their country there, so that they can learn to adapt and integrate and become a part of the melting pot. You got to do that. Otherwise, you're going to have really bad problems. Sweden is currently seeing it. Like a lot of the Scandinavians, Germany's having major
Europe
problems with it.
in general is as you
it's
say,
gonna. For those of you who are interested, Douglas Murray speaks very well on this. He has a couple books on this topic. If you're interested in reading about it, I believe one of them's called the Demise of Europe or something like that. But he goes into depth on this kind of stuff, and it is very scary because at the end of the day, there is a lot of the countries these people are coming from, and you're just gonna put it out there. It is reflected in the data that sexual assault is much more tolerated. You have stuff like grooming gigs going on in the UK not getting talked about. So it's like at the same time that there's most people that you can make the claim that most people you'll meet are good, you still have to do the job of making sure that your culture and your values and your law and order are the ones that are being understood and followed and appreciated. So
I think this is a great topic. If you don't mind, Kevin, I kind of got a jet, but I was
going to say let's go ahead and wrap it up. Let's see if there's any other questions.
I actually Brent says religion at its core will always divide people. I fundamentally disagree. I think that people use it as a gatekeeping tool for their social circles, and I think that's really the boundary issue.
It's the values. It's the values and the ethics. It's the morals and ethics that come out of it that matter.
Yeah, and so I definitely understand kind of the sentiment of the comment. I just we don't get to do. It is
divisive. It does.
Yeah, we don't
divisive,
get to do these kinds of shows very often. So I just want to address it from the stance of, if you're ingrained into your social group and that includes your religion, don't take it personally because people don't do things the same way or don't want to do things the same way. I think, and that's kind of, I'll take that full circle and I'll say the empathy and compassion that we sometimes lack as individuals, particularly kind of, as individual looking people, more on the libertarian conservative end of things. What we often do is make huge judgments that don't let us like our gatekeeping skills, like I said, are just bad. And so I'll just I'll reference that and say that, a little bit of compassion and kindness can go a really long way. Some empathy for what's going on in the world right now is huge, but, full circle on all of this is that we have to look at the culture of America, and if the things that you're doing don't mesh with the culture of America, that's okay. Generally speaking, you can go about your business, do what you want to do, and I'll speak for myself. I'm not going to care, and that's where that libertarian side of freedom sticks. Is you do you, I'll do me. And as long as we don't intersect in a way that's going to cause violence, financial loss, or potential infringements on my rights, we're always going to agree. And I think that's the beauty of being a person who values the individual rights over the collective feeling.
Yep. So this last question right here. So Tracy, thank you, Tracy. You're giving us a lot of credit here. You two know history well. What books do you recommend to teach children correct history? So in all honesty, there's some, I don't, as far as like younger, I have a bit of an issue because I was reading, I don't know like what kind of level. I was always reading a little bit above my level, so I don't really know necessarily how to tailor it. I will actually look up, I'll try to find 3 books this week that I think that would be good. What age group are you talking about, Tracy, if you don't mind throwing it in there?
But I'll throw this out there. I
grab this really quick.
I was going to say Radicals is good, but one of the other things that I did a lot of time, and somebody just pointed out, I think Denise said, is old encyclopedias. When I was a kid growing up, we had a full set of Britannica encyclopedias.
I would say
and
Democracy in America by Alexis de Tocqueville. But
yeah, I think that there are a ton of things that people have
14?
discarded out of their lives. But an encyclopedia is not a bad place to start. It's just
honestly
facts.
14. If your kid loves America and he's 14, just have him read easy stuff like from the founding, such as Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Some of the Federalist Papers are really good. The Anti-Federalist Papers. There's biographies on Jefferson.
Thomas Paine.
Yep, to Thomas Paine, absolutely. Like I said, Democracy in America by Alexis de Tocqueville. It is a little bit more difficult of a read, but it is probably the best book written about what America is ever. So there's a lot of really good books, and I know I'm missing many, but if I could recommend all of you read one book and one book only, if you want to make sense of what's going on in today's day and age, what the left is doing, you must read Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. This is their playbook. This is the left's playbook. This is where they get stuff like accuse the other side of what you're doing so that, nobody knows you're actually the ones doing it kind of deal. Please, if you can, read this book. It's 170 pages, and all it does is lay out how the left seizes control so effectively without ever seeming to fire a shot. But Eric, thank you so much for coming on with me tonight and having this discussion. Everyone in the comments, thank you guys so much for asking questions, staying engaged. You made it a lot of fun for me. I'm going to do these a lot more because I really, really, really just truly love community engagement and talking to you guys. I really just love answering questions when you guys ask them. I don't always have the answers, but I try to give you at least the perspective I would come at stuff from. So thank you guys.
I've got to shamelessly plug really quickly. Everybody go hit like, follow, and share. Make sure that you are getting the Be the Change notifications as well as Liberty Revolt merchandise. Go hit up our Shopify store, which is awakenotwoke.myshopify.com. We've got some great discount codes. I'll have to kind of go through and see what we're running this week, but hit us up for some new gear. And I'll kind of leave it there with that, guys. But it's been a pleasure to join you tonight, Kevin. Thank you for having me on. And we'll speak a little later. Thanks, guys.
Sounds good. Hey, I will be, just for you guys all to know, I will be coming out with content specifically on the Be the Change page. Look for an article.
Yeah, be looking out. We're gonna have a lot coming.
I'm gonna be doing stuff specifically on the page starting this week. So be on the lookout, guys. Thank you guys again so much for coming.